As we wrap up 2025, we are representing some of the very finest episodes of the year. And next up, we got Joseph Nguyen sharing some fantastic insights on how to stop overthinking and build real mental resilience. I have thought about this conversation frequently, so I hope that it serves you well also.
Although we can't change the event or even our initial thought of it, we can always let go of the thinking or judgment about whatever is going on. And that's where the power lies. Thoughts have no power over us unless we believe them to be true, right? So the belief in the judgment is what causes this suffering and is the difference. Peace comes from being present. It is a natural byproduct of doing so. The more that we are able to do that, that's the happier we will be, for sure.
That's Joseph Nguyen. He's the author of multiple books, including the #1 international bestseller, Don't Believe Everything You Think. Through his writing, he helps others live an abundant life free from psychological and emotional suffering. So you'll learn 1, how to spot and stop negative thoughts. 2, how to pause overthinking. And 3, how to beat procrastination with SPA. And if you'd like a summary write-up of these actionable takeaways, I recommend you sign up for the free Gold Nugget email newsletter at awesomeatyourjob.com. I'm Pete Makaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Joseph. Joseph, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Pete.
Well, I'm excited to talk about your area of expertise. Your book, Don't Believe Everything You Think, has just taken off tremendously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And the title is so good. It's so funny. Amazon auto completes. If you type, Don't believe everything you think, I'm like, nice.
Yeah, that's a great advertisement, I guess. And a great, just a slogan just to have all over Amazon. It's what it should be instead of all the stuff that we don't need to be buying.
I hear, don't buy many other things here.
Exactly.
Well, so can you take us through the journey a little bit of how you and your relationship to thought and the insights that you discovered came to be in your own personal lived existence?
A lot of what I've come to realize comes from, this is not new information. This has been here for eons, thousands of years from everyone and so many different countries, cultures. I mean, I draw influence from Western philosophy, Eastern philosophy, Zen, Buddhism, Christianity, so much cognitive behavioral therapy. Like you name it, there's probably some sort of influence there. But I think the only time that I was able to actually integrate it into my life was when I sort of hit a rock bottom moment where after I really tried as much as I possibly could, all the options that were available to me, like, I mean, there's therapy, there's acupuncture, acupressure, there's going vegan. I did all these things and it didn't really quite work until it forced me to look internally. I was trying to do everything to change everything outside of me. So changing people's behaviors, how they viewed me, how they judged me, wanting and trying to earn other people's approval, love, all these sorts of things, all these attempts at finding what could only be found within. So I think the moment where I kind of hit rock bottom, which was a point in my life where, I mean, I had a business that was growing, it was going great. I accomplished a lot of the goals that I had, but at the cost of my own mental health. So every single day I was just so chronically anxious, borderline depressed, if you want to. I was probably depressed. I just wouldn't admit it to myself that was it. And I just didn't know where the next client was coming from. I didn't know if we're going to have enough money, food. My partner, now wife, she had a lot of physiological illnesses. So she had gastroparesis. And so she couldn't eat, got a feeding tube, hospitalized multiple times. All of that was happening concurrently with basically my business falling apart. Then my business partner and I split. I went 50,000 into debt at around 21, 22 years old. And so all of that happened within a span of about a year. And so that was probably the rock bottom moment that I hit, where I thought after accomplishing everything that I wanted, that it would give me this internal peace and joy, but it did the exact opposite. And that was because I didn't realize where peace comes from. And it doesn't come from manipulating the environment or other people or the world to whatever I think it needs to be. It comes from releasing that desire, that need to change everything outside of me except myself. So rock bottom, I think pain is a great motivator and catalyst for change. Most people like myself probably wouldn't change if it wasn't absurdly painful. So I'm actually very grateful for those experiences, but it's quite difficult to go through it. But that was the genesis of the turning point for me.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. That's heavy and it's a lot. And I think what you're articulating dead on it. We just chatted with Anne-Laure Lecomte, who discussed the arrival fallacy. This notion that, yes, when this happens, then it'll be smooth sailing. I'll be happy. I'll be free. I'll be at peace. All my problems will be solved. And it just doesn't work out that way. And sometimes we don't believe it until, as you said, we experience that pain. We have arrived and go, shoot, these feelings are still there. That lack of peace is still there.
Yes.
So what then? What happened next?
So it basically forced me to look inside because I was trying all these modalities to help and they did help to a certain extent, but it didn't really change that much. And it puzzled me because I thought to myself, I surely can't be the only one going through this. So that's when I started looking for a lot of different solutions. And then I started questioning my own experiences, and other people's experiences too, which is I think most people, if not every single human, goes through extremely difficult and challenging events and times or even traumas. And so I started to ask myself and run thought experiments where it's like, if two people have similar traumas, how is it possible that one person can spiral downwards and fall into a deep depression and isn't really able to get out of it, while another person who has gone through something similar is able to make amends and make peace with the past and become okay with what happened. And not only that, but become empowered by what happened and go on to want to help other people not experience the same thing. How is that possible if we can't go back and change the past? So neither one of them went back to alter the events in any single way, which means it's not the events that was changed, but their own thinking about what happened to them. And so that sparked an epiphany, which was our emotions don't come from external events. They come from our own thinking about the events, which is our own judgments, our own opinions, our own criticisms about the event or even ourselves and our own thoughts about whatever happened. And so that was what kind of made a giant light bulb moment for me, which is like, oh my gosh, there's no way to change the past, but I can always change the way that I'm viewing it. Is this helpful or hurtful? This sort of incessant, nonstop negative judgment of life, of myself, of other people. And so that spawned a whole slew of new questions for myself, which was like, why do I do that? Why do I constantly wish things were different? Why do I constantly tell myself that I'm not enough, not good enough, not smart enough, not whatever it is, and repeating these stories to myself? And I never stopped to ask myself, is that actually helpful? When has overthinking helped me? And so I realized then that overthinking doesn't solve problems. It creates them and exacerbates them. And I just didn't understand that I could just not negatively judge the things that are happening in my life or myself. That was an extremely liberating moment for me. And I mean, most of the thoughts that we have over 60,000 thoughts in a single day. How is it possible that every single one of those thoughts is true? There's no way, right? And if it were true that we are our thoughts, what happens to the thought that just passed our minds, that just left?
Oh,
we're still here.
Disappeared. Okay.
Yeah. We're still here, right?
Yeah.
So that means we are something beyond our thoughts. Same thing with emotions. If we are our emotions, if I am depressed or if I am anxious, if I am those things or I am happy, what happens when those things pass? Anxiety or happiness? I'm still here. How is that possible? So we are not our thoughts and we are not our emotions then. We are something greater than that. And that is the feeling in the space that I sink back into to finally find some peace, because I realized that everything in life is transient, including our thoughts. And if we are the common denominator that is still here, then those fleeting things can't be possibly us. That was the eye opener for me.
Yeah, wow. There's so much good stuff here, and I'm just like drawing all kinds of connections. I recall I was in a therapy session once, and I posed the same question, and it's like, what is so? Is it true that like Nietzsche or Kelly Clarkson says that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or is it the opposite experience in which no, I had a bad thing happen to me, and I'm somehow less strong, weaker, not as capable as a result of an experience. So it's like, so what? So which is it? And under what circumstances and why and what's the distinction? And he didn't give any easy answer. Like, that's one of the greatest questions of therapy.
Amping you up.
And so, yeah, I mean, and that is one of the assertions, I believe, of cognitive behavioral therapy or of Shakespeare. There's nothing good or bad, but rather thinking makes it so. And our cognitive distortions or our thoughts about things and judgments shape the emotional reactions and experiences we have. And we had a Navy SEAL, Alden Mills, sharing some similar notions like, hey, is this thought helpful or hurtful? Oh, all right, well then let's bring some energy to the helpful thoughts. And we got some real wisdom there. Is like, we cannot be our thoughts, we cannot be our emotions, because our thoughts and our emotions are ever shifting and changing. And that sounds wise and familiar. Is this coming from a wisdom tradition, or is this a Joseph original?
Nothing is original from me. Creativity is just a blend of a lot of different parts and combining it into something seemingly new, but it's all from Eastern philosophy, some Western, right? Some Stoicism, Zen, there's Buddhism in that, there's there's tons of psychology in there, right? Like cognitive behavioral therapy uses so much of this in terms of questioning our own thoughts, our own emotions, trying to figure out the root cause of all this. So all of that, I definitely stand on the shoulders of many, many giants from centuries or millennia.
Mm-hmm. And so you put a stake in the ground, and it seems like you've got some real conviction here that it is indeed our thoughts and judgments and overthoughts about a situation that is the source of our depression, anxiety. And I'm thinking, is it the only source, the primary source? Are we sure about this? It sounds true-ish, but what's our best evidence for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of emotions, right, there's no way to really prevent quote unquote negative emotions. Those will always come and go. What I propose in the book is less about preventing them, but to reduce the time spent experiencing those emotions. Because a lot of times we are replaying and ruminating on memories of the past and bringing them into the present moment and reliving that experience from a certain vantage point of it, which may or may not be true. I don't know. But if it makes us feel a lot of anxiety or depression or resentment, is that possible for us to change? And if so, then how? And so in the book, I started to realize, right, like let's say there's a lot of people in veteran hospitals or recovering in Alcoholics Anonymous, or tons of people who have been through so many different things. How is it possible that there's people that have gone through something similar, but then have different results? So it's like, what are they changing? They're not going back in the past to do it. So they're changing something now in the present moment to alter their experience. And so that's where the book is coming from, which is like, what can we do now that things have happened, and becoming more resilient, right? This is building and training emotional regulation and resilience rather than a prevention of emotions in totality. Because a lot of times, sometimes emotions are very helpful. They help to protect us. They help give us signs. All emotions are messengers to help us and to show us what we need to pay attention to. That's all emotions are. But if we believe them to be the only source of truth and an ultimate conclusion about ourselves, then that's where we run into trouble. And let's say if we're really depressed, then we might think about ourselves and say, we're not enough. We're not lovable. We'll never find love. These sorts of beliefs about ourselves, which is what I call thinking or negative judgments, those things are not necessarily that helpful, and they harm us more than help us. And so is it possible to let those things go? And if so, how? So for me, why I use the word thinking in particular is because it's the best word I could find to explain the phenomena of just ruminating negatively on something. So I make a distinction in the book, thoughts versus thinking. A thought is a neutral observation or intuitive prompting about an event that happened.
I would like to eat some food. Or maybe that's a desire. Maybe
Yeah,
it's both.
that is
I
a
just
thought.
thought I had a desire.
That could be a desire. And then thinking, on the other hand, is a negative judgment about an event or your own thoughts. So let's take a scenario.
I'm overweight. I should eat all this food.
Right.
I
See,
need
should
to
is a great indicator that we're thinking, right? That's usually a preliminary word that we use before we judge ourselves. And so an example of this is, let's say it's raining outside. A thought is, it's raining. That's a neutral observation. Thinking, on the other hand, would be something like, why is this happening? Why does this always happen to me? This rain completely ruined my day. I'm always unlucky like this. All of this thinking about the thought of it raining is not as helpful to us and is the source of all this suffering. So if it did, let's say we did have something planned and it rained and it ruined our day, that's unfortunate, right? Like we had plans, we planned for it, but is it possible to not let it ruin our entire day? Is it possible to let go of this emotional suffering within a few minutes? And so that's why I say that's the thinking part of whatever is going on. And although we can't change the event or even our initial thought of it, right? We can always let go of the thinking or judgment about whatever is going on. And that's where the power lies. For example, thoughts have no power over us unless we believe them to be true, right? So the belief in the judgment is what causes this suffering and is the difference.
Yes. And well, now as you use the word thinking, I am wondering if we could do some other thinking or judging about the rain in a positive fashion in terms of, at last the crops will be nourished by this rain, or, you know what, let's just frolic like a child. And so in your definition, would you still call that thinking, or even though it has maybe a positive vibe or feeling associated with it?
I think there's two different categories of what we can call positive thinking. On one hand, it could just be an intuitive prompting. An example of that would just be, it's raining. Let's go outside and play in the rain. It doesn't necessarily have to skew towards, this is the best thing that's ever happened in the entire... See, like where we can over-exaggerate positive thinking is equally where we can fall short of it, because who's to say it is the best thing in the entire world? Because if it's raining here, it might flood somewhere else. So it's very difficult to just ultimately and conclusively say if this is good or bad. And so if we are overly positive about something, then it opens us up for, well, what if that's might not be the case?
Yeah, so it might feel good, but we're not necessarily getting closer to truth or accurate representation of reality.
Correct. Yeah. And we can skew both ways, right? And that's when positive thinking can then open us up in all sorts of cans of worms. But that's not to say that positive thinking doesn't work. And I don't want to say that at all. It certainly does work. But the question is it sustainable? And is it based in reality? Right. So if we observe the rain and we're like, oh, look, it's like nourishing the crops. Like that's a neutral and true observation, like it is feeding the plants and all that stuff. And we can feel good about that. But what I also observed as well was like, once we let go of the negative judgment about things, we are naturally at peace. We are naturally more joyful. We skew towards that way. And if you look at like children that are a couple years old, they skew towards happiness. They're smiling, they're happy, unless they're like hungry, right? Or like something is physiologically wrong. They're generally just very positive, very happy, laughing all the time. And that's our natural state as well, if we don't negatively judge whatever situation is going on. If we let go of worrying about the future or ruminating and resenting the past, that is our default state. So you don't necessarily have to try to be positive. And other examples I love giving is, think about or recall a time where it's like you were very anxious or stressed, overwhelmed. Like how much thinking is going on?
Oh, plenty.
Too much, right? But then if we flip and invert the question, recall a time when you were your happiest, in a total state of flow and you lost track of time. How much thinking was going on then?
Yeah, it's, I guess per your definition of thinking, very little. Although if you're in a flow and doing a thing,
you're having thoughts.
You naturally have to, yes, you're having thoughts. But
yes.
You're not thinking in the
About
Joseph
them.
sense of the word.
Right. You're not negatively judging the thoughts or experience that you're having. You're just in it. You're fully immersed. That's when you lose a sense of self, actually. And that's when we are no longer psychologically suffering. And some people in the spiritual community will call this like the death of the ego. It's when you just dissolve and you feel at one with everything. That's what flow is. And why a lot of times people will say like that's ideal state for humans to be in. Athletes experience this very often when they're in and playing a game during a competition. They're not so much thinking about what's going on. They are just intuitively responding and being there. And that's like our ideal state that we're in. Actually, the times that athletes think too much, they tend to miss the shots or think too much about something and overanalyze, right? And that's when they freeze and choke when they could have definitely done something different. The same thing is true for our own lives. The more that we constantly just ruminate, judge, and criticize ourselves, other people, events, we tend to freeze, become, and go into a fight or flight mode and act as if our life really is in danger and operate from a place of fear rather than love and expansion and joy.
Well, Joseph, we're getting near a zone I've been pondering for a while, which is you talk about when we feel a sense of peace or joy and flow, contentment. And I've been reflecting on the distinction between contentment and boredom. Because in terms of an external view of the situation, they're almost the same. It's like nothing's really happening right now. And yet, when we feel bored, we're restless, agitated, and I guess negatively judging. I don't like that nothing's going on right now.
Right.
Versus when we are content, it's like, just nothing's going on right now. And that feels restful, rejuvenating, restorative. And we like and appreciate the space that we find ourselves in. So I guess that is perhaps one of many examples of the judgment we bring to a situation, shaping it. But I'd love your pro tip. If we find ourselves bored and would rather be content, what should we do?
Yeah, great question. So boredom is not necessarily a bad thing. Boredom, a lot of times, is the birth of creation, new things, new hobbies, new thoughts, new ideas. If we're not bored a lot of the time, or sometimes, then we're actually just recycling a lot of the same material from the past and constantly going, and we feel like we're in the hamster wheel. So boredom is not necessarily bad. And, when you see kids get bored, what do? They
invent some games.
Exactly. That's what humans do. When we're bored, we create. And so it acts as a great motivator. But where things can go a little bit south is when we say, oh, instead of being content with what's happening right now, let's say we're on vacation. We're like, I should be working. If I'm working these hours, I could make so much more money, or I have all these emails I need to get to. And like, you're not able to actually enjoy yourself in the present moment. And you're constantly thinking about the future and all these things you need to get done. That's when the quote unquote boredom, or what we would call that in that case, that's when it robs our peace and takes it away from us, is when we think we need to be doing something else other than what we're currently doing or experiencing. So in that case, what I love recommending to do is just to schedule those things, and just like, if you're on vacation, like that's the boundary you need to draw for yourself. But if we don't draw boundaries, it will creep in. All of these beliefs that we have, all these negative judgments that we have about ourselves or what we shouldn't be doing, they will come in unless we set that boundary for ourselves. Like, if I'm on vacation, my phone's off, or I'm not taking emails or whatever it is. But without those, they will creep in, and they will start to fester and become uncontrollable at that point. And this is really a practice of presence more than anything else. Are we able to do and give our full attention to what is happening right now in front of us? Or are we distracted and thinking about something else in the meantime? Peace comes from being present. It is a natural byproduct of doing so. The more that we are able to do that, that's the happier we will be, for sure.
I'm reminded of the scientific journal article, A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind, in which I think it was Kahneman and company you looked at just that in terms of empirically checking with people and, hey, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? And seeing the results. So that's that there. When you say boundaries, my first thought is sort of external things. Like, I will not be picking up my smartphone. I will not be answering emails on vacation. Do you have some thoughts for boundaries we have, like, with ourselves and our own thoughts or experiences?
Those are the most important boundaries, because we can change everything external, but if we don't change anything internally, then we're still going to suffer a lot emotionally. So some of the most important internal boundaries that you so aptly alluded to are the judgments that we're making. That is really the core of our emotional suffering, of our resentment towards others, to ourselves, if we don't draw that boundary and say like, we will no longer judge ourselves in this light, then we're going to keep doing it. And we do this mostly because we're not even aware that there's an option out, that, oh, we can just not judge everything that's going on. Like there's a way that as I go about my life, I don't have to constantly narrate and say, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, this should be happening, this shouldn't be happening. We just aren't taught that. Most people just don't know. And I wasn't aware of that until I was basically smacked in the face with it and had to hit rock bottom to find it. But that is probably the most important boundary to set, which is, can we let go of the judgments that we're having about ourselves, the world, whatever's happening? Are we able to enjoy it as it is? When we go about life, most of the time we judge everything. This person's good, this person's bad, this person's evil, this person's not, this beautiful, ugly. Like there's so many things that happen. But when we walk in nature, like how many of us are saying this flower is ugly, this flower is like beautiful, or like this tree is crooked, or what? Like we just observe and enjoy nature as it is, rather than constantly pick apart every single thing that we think is wrong with this tree. As soon as we do that, that's when we suffer. So nature is a great way to reset because of that. And it brings us back to our true nature, ironically, of just being aware and giving our full attention to someone without judging them. That's what the basis of love is, unconditional love, which is to fully accept someone as they are without wanting to change them, without wanting them just to be something different. Full acceptance of that is where peace comes from. This not only goes for people, but for situations, anything. That is the root of unconditional love. And it's like, use that thought experiment for yourself. Like, when do you feel most loved by someone? When they're constantly judging you, nagging you, saying you should do this, saying you should be different, you should be better, you should be doing any of these things. Or when they fully accept you as you are without judging.
Mm-hmm.
That is the core of everything.
I love that.
Yeah.
My children would say when we do hugs and kisses in flying blanket mode.
Exactly.
But it falls into a subcategory of what you're describing.
Right.
I like that notion about the narration, that we're just doing it all the time. And it might not even seem too intense. Like, I'm such a stupid idiot. Right? Even just like, oh, that sun's kind of in my eyes. Oh, it's kind of hot. Like, oh, I'm just tired. It's like, there you are in nature. You might not be condemning the tree for being crooked, but we are narrating and judging. I am often experiences therein in terms of like the air temperature or the illumination that is not perfectly aligned to the preferences I have in that moment.
Yeah. And that's where all the suffering comes from, is just what we wish would happen, what we want the world to be. But peace, comes from letting go of what we wish everything would be and accept it for how it actually is. And yeah, same goes for anything in life. People, even ourselves, in like AA, like one of the first steps is like just acceptance. The 5 stages of grief, like acceptance is what you're trying to go for. So like, and in CBT, acceptance of whatever emotions we're feeling is also a core component of the whole process. So at the end of it all, like all these different modalities are pointing to the same thing, which is, can I let go of the judgment that I'm having of whatever is happening and going on? Once we're able to let go of that thinking mind, the fear-based mind and the judgmental mind, then we're able to find a little peace.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said that we have the option to stop the narration, and I am a frequent Audible listener who likes to pause my audiobooks, and I understand you've got a little acronym you can walk us through.
Yes, exactly. So this acronym, I tried to make it as actionable as possible in terms of, what we're doing is letting go of the judgments. That's the whole purpose of this. And so this makes the act of letting go a little bit more tangible. So the first letter in the acronym is P, which is pause. So pause and take deep breaths. And don't need to get fancy with it. Just take 5 deep breaths. There's no specific way you need to do it. But it's been scientifically proven that taking deep breaths allows us to lower our heart rate, to regulate our emotions, and to come back to center. So just do that in the beginning of anything. And because it's really hard to regulate or do anything or make decisions or come back to yourself when we're in a fight or flight mode. Next is A, which is ask ourselves, is this thinking useful? Just like the other psychologists you mentioned before, like, is this thinking making me feel the way that I want? If not, the next step is U, which is understand that you have the ability to let that thinking or judgment go. We always have that power. We may not be able to control our thoughts, but we can always control our thinking about thoughts. And therein lies our entire power to change our experience of life. S is say and repeat the mantra, thinking is the root cause of suffering. You can use any mantra in this matter. Another one, for example, would be, I let go and choose peace. Any mantra rooted in truth will work, and it needs to be short and memorable. What mantras do is that it's very difficult to think of two things simultaneously. So what it does is it focuses your attention on this one thing, which means you can't be thinking about the future or ruminating about the past. So it forces focus and attention on something that is true. So repeating that for maybe 30 seconds to a minute is really all you need. And that will slow the thinking mind. It will calm things down significantly. That's the basis of transcendental meditations as well. What a lot of the Tibetan monks use to go beyond the mind and to achieve like oneness with the universe. But we take it here and you're able to use it in real time. Then E, the last step is to experience your emotions fully without resistance. So we're not trying to bypass the emotions by just not thinking about it. We're actually removing the judgment of the emotions, because what we resist persists. So if we are resisting the anxiety, it usually gets worse, which is why a lot of times when someone has a panic attack, they're much more prone to more panic attacks, simply because it's just like self-fulfilling, so to speak, is like once we experience something and don't want it to happen, we just put up a wall and just constantly resist it. But in physics, what an object emotion will stay in motion, right? But also for every force, there's an equal and opposite force happening. So if you have this force of an emotion and you're resisting the emotion, that emotion is going to constantly be there and it's going to stay stuck unless it passes through your system. This also happens with anything that is stuck, creates a significant amount of suffering. For a slightly more comical and lighthearted example is like, if you eat a lot of food and it doesn't pass through your system, what happens? Like a week, a month passes. It's going to be very painful and it's going to cause all sorts of issues. The same thing is true for our thoughts and emotions. The more that we hold on to our thoughts and don't let them pass through, the more it's going to cause us a lot of emotional suffering. Thoughts, emotions, all these things are transient and meant to pass through us, just like water flowing through a river. As soon as a river is dammed up, that's when wildlife begins to dwindle, fish begin to die, all these things start to happen. But as soon as the river is able to flow, that's when life begins to flourish. That is the same thing for our own lives. So letting thoughts and emotions pass through us without resistance. So the way to do that is to create space within ourselves, to honor and hold the emotions and to not judge them, right? See them as another entity, like our inner child or even one of our own children, and to hold them within our hearts and to give them space to be there without judging them, without saying, you shouldn't be here. Why are you here again? Right? That's what we say to these emotions a lot of times, like, why are you still here, anger? Like, and we're angry at the anger. And so it just compounds. But as soon as we say, oh, like, you're welcome here. You're not an enemy. It's okay. As soon as you give children, right, space, time, and attention, things begin to settle and we're able to regulate. The same thing is true for all of our emotions, and it passes so much more quickly when we're doing this rather than kind of putting up a wall. So that's the whole entire process. Pause, take deep breaths. A, ask yourself, is this thinking helpful, useful? U, which is understand you have the ability to let that thinking go. S, which is say and repeat the mantra. And E, which is experience your emotions fully without resistance.
Beautiful. Thank you. And if I may put some numbers into this. So you had a mantra, I counted, it was about 7 words. Is that around the length that we're thinking about? Like if we push it to 20, it's outside of mantra zone?
Probably. It just creates so much more thinking and you're probably going to have to try to remember, am I saying it right? Did I forget a word? And you're trying to make it as simple as possible so that you don't have to overthink it.
All right. And then with experience, I think when I've resisted historically, it's been almost out of a fear that if I begin to experience this sadness, this sorrow, this grieving at this deeply unfortunate thing that has occurred, then will it swallow me? Will it persist for a long time and impact the things I need to do this day, this week, this month? And so I can sometimes push away. But you say with the water flowing situation, and that which we resist persists, we are better off experiencing it fully. I mean, Joseph, for those fellow aversive pushers, awayers,
Master push-uppers, yeah.
how long are we in for a rough emotional experience if we allow it to hang out?
I will say shorter than if you're resisting it.
Okay.
So the irony in it is that when we're pushing it away, we think that we're not dealing with it, but we're still suffering. We're constantly thinking about it. We're wishing it were different. We're ruminating on it constantly. But what we don't understand is that when we just allow it to be there, that it passes so much more quickly. I think neuroscience is saying now that it takes about 90 seconds for an emotion to be regulated in our bodies. The only reason why it's prolonged most of the time is that we begin ruminating on the event or judging the situation that happened. It resets that time period. So we'll go 90 seconds, and right before that, we'll think about it again, we'll judge it again, and it keeps prolonging the cycle. And so it only takes a few minutes to do this and to let go. And it's not like the entire emotion will go away, but the intensity of the emotion will be drastically reduced than what it was when we were resisting. And over time, as you build the muscle of emotional resiliency and emotional regulation, it becomes a little bit easier to do every single time. And the threshold in which we become overwhelmed is significantly expanded. So we can take on a lot more in life. We're able to do a lot more. We're able to endure a lot of these events with a lot more grace and a lot more love. But yeah, it's definitely scary to kind of allow these emotions to come in, because we don't, we think that we might not be able to handle it. We might crumble under the emotion. But, you have to ask yourself, like we were saying before, like, am I my thoughts? Am I this emotion? And think about all the difficult times and trouble that you've been through and all the trauma. Are you still here? Right. So that means you're greater than every single emotion that you've ever experienced. And the same is true now. And it will be true forever, because those things are not us.
Joseph, beautiful stuff. Can you share any final thoughts before we hear about some of your favorite things?
Yeah. I would run micro experiments with yourself. Like, you actually don't have to believe anything that I'm saying. Ironically, like the book title, test it out for yourself. See if it's true. If thinking is the root cause of your emotional suffering. And the way that you can test this out is to try to suspend judgment, negative judgment about yourself, your own thoughts, your own emotions, external things, people, circumstances. See if you can suspend judgment for about 7 days. That's it. You don't have to do a month. You don't have to do a year. Just see if you can let go of the judgments that your mind is creating for 7 days, and see how you feel afterwards. If it significantly improves your emotional well-being, awesome. Continue doing it. And if it doesn't, that's completely okay. And you can find another modality that might work for you. But at the very least, try it and see what happens. And it is only through our own lived experience that you know what truth is, rather than just taking someone's word for it. So that's what I would encourage everyone to do, and just see for yourself.
Big thanks to Joseph for sharing his wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out.
One sponsor to check out is Taylor. Taylor is an award-winning AI and expert-styled menswear rental subscription service featured in GQ, Vogue, and more. Taylor's mission is to help people look good so they can achieve their personal and professional goals while reducing fashion waste to support a more sustainable future. Some guys are hard to shop for. They seem to have everything. Taylor solves that by offering many style choices. We're talking 20,000 garments, 2,000 styles, 300 brands curated just for them, making it a thoughtful clothing gift that they'll actually wear. I personally really enjoyed how quickly, easily, and delightfully I was cruising through my online style quiz. And with renting, there's no need to worry about shopping, commitment, laundry, or landfill with your clothes. So give the gift of time, convenience, and effortless style. Visit taylor.style and get 10% off Taylor gift cards with the code PODCASTGIFT. That's TAELOR.style and use code PODCASTGIFT for 10% off Taylor gift cards. One sponsor to check out is Vanguard. For all the financial advisors listening, let's talk bonds for a minute. Capturing value in fixed income is not easy. Bond markets are massive, murky, and a lot of firms will just throw a couple flashy funds your way and call it a day. But not Vanguard. Vanguard bonds provide top-grade products across the board. Their lineup includes over 80 bond funds actively managed by a 200-person global squad of sector specialists, analysts, and traders. Vanguard's been in the game for a long time at a scale that gives them a serious edge.
They're able to invest across many sectors, maturities, and geographies, spotting opportunities that others might miss. Vanguard takes a steady approach, focusing on reliability and consistency. So if you're looking to give your clients consistent results year in and year out, go see the record for yourself at vanguard.com/audio. That's vanguard.com/audio. All investing is subject to risk. Vanguard Marketing Corporation, distributor. One sponsor to check out is Quince. Quince makes the essentials every guy needs. Mongolian cashmere sweaters for $50, Italian wool coats that look and feel designer, and pants that fit just right. Each piece is made from premium materials by trusted factories that meet rigorous standards for craftsmanship and ethics. Quince delivers luxury quality at a fraction of the price. I have been loving my Quince cashmere beanie this December. I'm reaching for it almost every single day. My whole family is genuinely excited when we see another Quince box appear at the door. And their shipping and returns are wildly fast and easy. So get your wardrobe sorted and your gift list handled with Quince. Don't wait. Go to quince.com/awesome for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/awesome. Free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/awesome. Beautiful. Well, now could you share a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
One of my favorite quotes is actually in the book, which is from Jonathan Safran Foer, which is, I think. I've thought myself out of happiness 1,000,000 times, but never once into it.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Thank you. And a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
The neuroscience study that I was alluding to before, I don't know exactly what experiment it was, but they're studying about how long it takes for our emotions to actually pass through our systems. And it was about 90 seconds, which was mind-boggling to me because I thought it would take multiple minutes or at least 10 minutes, right? For if you're angry of something, I feel like it takes way longer than 90 seconds. So that was a profound shift in me to realize that, oh my gosh, it is possible to let go of a lot of these emotions quite quickly. And it's actually important to follow this. You don't have to follow this process specifically, but you can follow any process, but it's really important to do it in real time as you're going about your day. So this process is, if you're experiencing something in traffic or your boss says something or your parents says something or your friends that says something that creates a negative emotional reaction within you, it's important to use the process then rather than only use it in the morning or in the evening, like meditating, right? That way you are actually strengthening your emotional resiliency throughout the entire day. It's a little bit easier to find peace when you're alone in your room and it's dark, your blindfolds are on, there's Zen music, right? It's a little bit easier to find peace there. But the true test is, are you able to find peace while some, let's say your boss is screaming at your face or making fun of you, or your friends are doing something that you don't really approve of, or your parents are criticizing you in front of other family members. That's the time that, you're truly tested for if you're able to find peace. And this is something that you can use during those times rather than needing to bust out a 30-minute meditation just to find a little bit of alleviation. So that's one other thing I would do too.
Well, thank you. And a favorite book?
Favorite book. This one's very interesting, maybe slightly controversial, but it currently is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
Oh, okay. And a favorite tool, something you use to be awesome at your job?
I like to use this particular framework, just when I'm doing work, which is because I have, issues a lot of times of just procrastinating like most people, or just putting off things that I know I need to be doing. And one of the most effective things that I've done is to follow the SPA methodology, which is just, if I'm overwhelmed by something, just take the next smallest possible action. So SPA and doing that. So if I need to write another book, that's a pretty big task, pretty scary, daunting. And it's am I able to bust out a whole book in this one session? That's typically what the mind thinks of. But if I break it down to the smallest possible action, am I able to just open the Word document? Can I just do that? And I'm yeah, I can definitely click on Notion and open it up. I can definitely do that. And if I still can't do that, can I just sit at the computer desk?
Yes.
Yeah. So just keep breaking it down
until from the couch.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard, right? Sometimes it's really hard. And so it's okay if we need to break it down into those baby steps. But that works wonders for me. So it's can I write one sentence? And when I write one sentence, I'm going to want to write another sentence. I'm just going to go. And lo and behold, there's a couple dozen sentences, a couple hundred words pass. And that was way more progress than if I force myself, sit down and write my book. That's a big task. So smallest possible action. is what I like to default to when I am frozen in procrastination or analysis paralysis.
And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with folks? You hear it quoted back to you often.
Our emotions don't come from external events, but from our own thinking about those events. That is something that people just didn't really realize. And so it's like a massive, epiphany moment for them. Other ones are just like, I didn't realize that I could just stop judging.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea I could just not listen to that incessant negative critic in the back of our minds, and that I could just be and just be present. I don't have to be thinking about something else or doing something else. I can let go of whatever that incessant chatter is and to finally find a little bit of peace. And yeah, that big epiphany was like, oh yeah, like during the times that we are happiest, like we're not really thinking about anything else, doing or ruminating on anything. We're just there, fully engrossed by the moment. So those are probably like some of the biggest nuggets that people have gotten.
And if folks want to get in touch or learn more, where'd you point them?
Probably, I would say my website and newsletter. So josephnguen.org, josephnguen.org. You'll be able to find like my newsletter there, sign up for it. I do have a YouTube channel. I don't post that often, but a lot of the content there is evergreen. All my socials are it's Joseph Nguyen, ITS, and then Joseph Nguyen. Those are probably the best places to find me. But email is where you'll be able to be up to date on any new projects I'm working on.
Okay. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Let go of the fear of being judged. The more that we're afraid of being ourselves, to be awesome at our jobs, the less effective we'll be. And sometimes being ourselves will ruffle a few feathers. People will judge us one way or the other. Even if we're playing conservatively and not really showing that much at work, people are still judging us anyway. So we might as well be judged and criticized for being who we truly are rather than masquerading ourselves behind something else. And the more that you're able to be yourself, the more awesome you're going to be at your job. The more that you're able to lean into your own gifts, your own talents, your abilities. All of that is usually held back if we're afraid of what other people are thinking. So stand up for yourself. Do what you believe is best for the work that you're doing and definitely defend it and to not just let it be pushed over. Because at the end of the day, if you're coming from a place of love, generosity, true selflessness, and wanting to do the best that you possibly can, there's no shame in that at all. So if you're going to be criticized, definitely be criticized for doing what you believe is right rather than hiding behind and playing it small.
Joseph, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pete. It's been such a pleasure and so much fun with you. I love your energy.
I really love the way Joseph presents it as a revelation that, oh, I could just not judge everything that's happening around me and all these thoughts. Like that's just an option. And I have had similar epiphanies in terms of I've woken up and I feel like, oh, I should exercise. I should take care of these things, but I don't want to leave bed. Like that kind of state of mind. And I go, oh, you know what? I don't actually have to consult you, whoever you is. It's ego or what philosophical or psychological labeling we put at it. But yes, that voice that's judging and claiming shoulds. So I could just sort of not engage in that dialogue and just move my body through to wherever I'm going. So great stuff from Joseph. Wise thoughts about thoughts. If you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items that we've referenced, please visit us at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP1045. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.